That night, Mia decided she'd had enough. The whispers had been getting worse, a constant, faint scratching at the edge of her hearing, like mice in the walls. They always started when she looked in the mirror, the ornate, antique thing she'd found at a dusty flea market. At first, they were just sounds, but lately they'd started to sound like her name, Mia ... She unplugged the fairy lights that usually framed the mirror, plunging the room into near darkness. A single dim lamp on her nightstand cast long, dancing shadows. In the faint orange glow, the mirror's cracked glass, a small fracture from when she'd moved it, seemed to shimmer with a life of its own. It looked like a crooked smile. Her heart pounded a slow, heavy rhythm against her ribs. She pulled open her desk drawer, her hand closing around the cold, heavy handle of a hammer. She'd been thinking about this for days ever since the reflection started, changing, subtle things at first. A blink that was a fraction of a second too slow. A smile that lingered a moment too long after her own had faded. She stood before the mirror, her own face pale and strained looking back at her. "If you're real," she said, her voice a soft, trembling whisper, "you're staying in there." She took a deep breath, tightening her grip on the hammer. She wouldn't let it torment her anymore. She swung. The impact was shockingly loud in the quiet room. A sharp, violent crack echoed as the hammer connected with the glass. A flash of brilliant white light erupted from the point of impact, blinding her, filling the entire room for a split second. Then, absolute silence and darkness. Mia squeezed her eyes shut, spots dancing behind her eyelids. When she dared to open them again, the mirror lay in 1,000 glittering pieces on the floor. A wave of profound relief washed over her, so intense it made her knees weak. She let out a long, shuddering exhale. It was over. It was finally over. She knelt down cautiously, the broken glass crunching under her feet. She just needed to be sure. As she looked closer at the scattered shards, her breath hitched in her throat. Her blood ran cold. In one of the larger pieces near her foot, her reflection was still moving. It was staring right at her. Slowly, deliberately, it tilted its head to the side, a gesture she hadn't made. And then, it smiled, a wide, unnerving smile that didn't reach its eyes. Mia scrambled backward, a choked gasp escaping her lips. Her eyes darted around the floor. Another shard, a few feet away, twitched. The reflection within it turned its head. Then another, and another. Every single piece of broken glass held a perfect miniature version of her reflection, and each one was turning its head, moving at a slightly different, terrifyingly asynchronous time. A sea of her own face, all watching her, all moving on their own. A low whisper started, rising from the floor. Soft, calm, but multiplied. Dozens of voices, all her own, murmuring her name in a disorienting chorus. Mia, Mia. It was everywhere, coming from every direction, a cacophony of her own voice calling to her. She clapped her hands over her ears, screwing her eyes shut. "Stop, please stop," she whispered, her body trembling uncontrollably. The whispering grew louder, more insistent. "Stop IT." She screamed, her voice raw with terror. And just like that, the voices stopped. The sudden silence was as deafening as the noise had been. Hesitantly, she lowered her hands and looked up. All the glass pieces were still. The reflections were gone. In their place was just the plain, dark surface of the broken mirror, reflecting nothing. For the first time in her life, she looked down and couldn't see herself at all. The first rays of morning light seeped through the thin curtains, painting pale stripes across the floor. Mia's alarm clock buzzed faintly from her nightstand, a shrill, unwelcome sound. She groaned, her head throbbing. Her eyes fluttered open. She was lying on the floor, her cheek pressed against the cold wood. Shards of broken glass were scattered all around her, glittering in the morning sun. The hammer lay on the floor, just inches from her outstretched hand. Her body ached. Maybe it was just a dream. A vivid, terrifying nightmare brought on by stress. Maybe none of it had really happened. She pushed herself up slowly, her limbs stiff and sore. The room spun for a moment, and she steadied herself against the wall, still feeling dizzy and disoriented. She needed to wash her face, to splash some cold water and clear her head. She walked to the attached bathroom, her bare feet carefully avoiding the larger pieces of glass. She reached for the switch, flicking on the vanity light above the sink. The fluorescent bulb flickered to life. She looked up into the bathroom mirror, her heart still pounding with the memory of the nightmare, and she froze. For just a single, horrifying instant, before her own lips even had a chance to move, her reflection in the bathroom mirror smiled at her. Now, it's your turn. Thank you so much for listening to this story. If you enjoyed this journey into the dark, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel for more tales that will keep you up at night. Until next time, stay safe and maybe avoid old mirrors.